Prepaid pest control service. Does it make sense for you and your customers? We're going to discuss it on this edition of the Pest Geek Podcast.
Pull out your hose and grab your can. We're about to integrate another Pest Geek Podcast. Hi, everybody. Frank Hernandez here, and welcome to the Pest Geek Podcast, bringing you the latest information on pests, products, and politics from today's leading industry sources to help you start, manage, and grow your pest control business.
Hey, welcome back. Welcome back to another edition of the Pest Geek Podcast. I am your host, Frank Hernandez. We're discussing all things pest here today on this edition. We're going to be discussing prepaid pest control. Lots of controversy around prepaid pest control. Some people love it. Some people hate doing it. It all going to depend on many, many variables. And listen, where you are is not the rest of the country. And with customers becoming increasingly busy and the cost of performing billing and collection takes a huge chunk of not only your profits, but it takes a huge chunk out of your time. If you're an independent, small operator, you may have different ways that you're dealing with your account receivables. You're either doing when you go to the customer's house, and we're talking about general household pest control, okay? Large ticket items are different. You know, a $6,000 one-time termite treatment to a house is different than a recurring revenue stream. For a lot of people, recurring revenue stream really isn't that important because they are primarily selling big ticket items only. They're doing, $4,000 or $5,000 exclusion jobs. They're doing $4,000 or $5,000 termite jobs. They're doing bird barrier services that they're selling one time. A lot of companies niche and specialize. But for the majority of the small operator who starts out in pest control, he's going to start out in household pests because it's the easiest thing to sell. Selling commercial is difficult because usually it's tied to contracts. People are not willing to switch. But residential, with people buying something they really don't understand or they've bought before, it's a lot easier to get into GHP to start out than any other. It's a lot easier to do than lawn and ornamental, which is also recurring, but it's large ticket. You have to have a lot of discretionary income to buy that service. So it all depends on your business model, your USP. And we're going to be discussing these issues of USP a lot during these podcasts because a lot of people who get into pest control are just technicians. They've never been salespeople, professional salespeople. They've never been marketers. They've never been advertisers. They don't know about branding. They don't know about image. They don't know about what it really takes to run a pest control business. They don't understand all the accounting and the things that they get in because usually they got fed up with what they were doing. They didn't see any upward mobility. That's mostly why people get in. They just got tired of working for somebody else. Not because they dreamed one day, like I did when I was 14. I said, one day I'm going to own my own business. I was an entrepreneur, I think, from birth. And that's the way I'm wired. But most people get into this and get into business and pest control because of the circumstances that they couldn't do anything about. They found themselves after 20 years of working for a company unemployed. How many people are finding themselves unemployed today and they're in their late 40s or 50s and they're just not as hireable as other people that a company, especially large companies, can go and hire 2 to 3 pest control guys for what they would have to pay you to do the work. So in going to market, you've got to learn that if you're going to do a business, you're going to get into business, that more increasingly than ever, you have to learn how to go to market. And by you offering different types of services, not even related to pest control, you can find that you can gain more customers that are looking for what you are offering. The big difference between you and the larger company is that you sell you, and you sell exclusively you, and that's what people are buying. For the one single man operator, what he sells is himself. That's all he really has, and his experience and his personalized attention, his personalized service. That has a huge value, but understand that if you're going to be a one-man operator, you've got to be a super premium guy. If you're going to be the cheapest guy, and I've said this from day one, you can go back and listen to every podcast that I've done where I've mentioned this. And if you're going to be a solo operator, you've got to be a super premium brand. You've got to be the guy that charges double what everybody else charges, because you can only serve so many clients so much. And you have all the other responsibilities of running a business. You've got the marketing, trying to advertise, trying to maintain a website, trying to do the billing and accounting and accounts receivable and accounts payable. You're wearing so many hats that you need to pay for all those hats yourself. And increasingly, companies are getting more aggressive, especially a company that wants to grow with the sole purpose of being acquired. I mean, that's becoming really popular. You bring in a sales crew, you bring in a sales team from another city to come in and do door-to-door, and increasingly you face this monstrous competition overnight because somebody read somewhere that you could do it, and they go and do it, and basically it's very aggressive. And you're finding the phone isn't ringing. Your customer base, listen, your customer base that you've acquired is not going to really leave you for these types of companies. If they wanted that, they would have gone with the other 10 that you're competing with in your market. You're selling something unique. As a solopreneur, what I sold is my vast knowledge and experience of plant and plant care and how to properly do it, and I consult and I spend hours with a client talking to them about their garden. But those clients are worth to me anywhere between, $1,200 to $3,000 a year, compared to my GHP clients, which are worth to me, that are GHP only, are worth to me between $300-$400 a year on average. About $390, anywhere up to $500 a year. That's the range. And what I did is I went ahead and I went and surveyed, got pricing from every large brand in my market. And basically, they're all between $450 and $475 a year total cost. Whether you have a $79 intro, initial service, and then you charge that much every month, or every other, every recurring, whatever that recurring is, every quarter, to an $80 initial, to $125 initial with a $39 a month fee, automatically charged to your credit card, and then you service the property quarterly, but they're paying monthly. And for people, it's better for pay monthly, because I found that in selling my lawn care service, I do a contract for an entire year, and then we bill them monthly. Whether I go there every other month or I go there monthly, depending on the yard, we still bill those monthly. It is so much easier. And a lot of clients are wanting, believe it or not, to prepay a service for the year because they're terrible. They're so darn busy that to write a check every single time that you go to their property, have it. A lot of people do this billing thing that I saw landscapers do it, where they tell them the day they're going, and then they leave them a check, like in the back where the pool is, underneath the barbecue. Okay, they do all those kind of things to pay. And then what I discovered is that my time, if he forgets that check, to write a bill out, leave it there, send it in the mail, give him a call, and say, hey, listen, and chase customers down. And a lot of companies, large companies, are going to bill. This collecting on site, if you're there, listen, if you go to that property every month or every other month, and there's always somebody there, and you knock on the door and you performed an interior, exterior service every single time, because that's what you have to do, because, you know, certain houses that are 100 years old, it's different than in my market, that these are modern houses. They're about 20, 30 years old. They're very well sealed. It's a growing market, increasingly new homes, and it's not necessary to do an interior, exterior service every single time. We find ourselves doing an interior service once or twice a year, tops. On the average, we never touch it. So we don't see our clients. I go there, there's nobody ever home. 90% of these people are never there. Trying to make an appointment with them to get them to be there when you want to be there, it's impossible. I tried it. It almost drove me insane. I almost started drinking. So we went ahead and we did auto bill. I stopped leaving invoices on the door because I would be like, where's your, calling them. Hey, you haven't paid. Oh, we never saw the bill. The bill flew away. They dropped it somewhere. What I figured out is people are used to paying their bills once a month. And when they're used to paying their bills once a month, they take all their bills and they put them in one place when they get them in the mail, and then they just open them at the end and pay everybody at the end of the month. So I decided we're going to mail our invoices to our clients. And that was a charm. The check came in the mail automatically. We received it. We deposited it. Second, our competition couldn't figure out what we were charging. They couldn't pull a bill off the door and see, that we were servicing, and we left the bill there and say, what are these guys charging? And then go and undercut us. They had no clue what we're charging the client. That's one of the reasons we stopped doing it, because a lot of that was happening. What I do now is you get an email with your bill. It's emailed like automatically. We do auto billing for every client. And then what we do is on a weekly basis, we send a reminder every week automatically via email. And they get a bill in the mail. And if they're late, they're going to get another bill at the end of the month when we do our batch billing for everybody that's open accounts. That's a lot of work, but that's what you have to do in this market to get paid, because the average person, I'm going to give you an example of what the average life of a person here is in Miami. And I don't know where you are, but this is what it is for me. So this is what I'm talking about, going to market, that you have to understand who your client is and then build your services around your clients. The biggest mistake that technicians make when they go to market, when they're going to start up their company, is they sit there and they say, I'm going to design this business around what I want and how I want, when I want it. And you know what? And, that's how I'm going to do it, because they're thinking like a technician. Instead of saying, let me find out what most of my clients want. And most of them do, because they've been in that market. But they still have this mentality that I'm just going to do what I want and not figure out what the client wants or needs. And when you're building a personalized business, like a one-man operation, you have to really, really, really get to know what those clients are. The problem is going to be everybody's going to want something special. So what you have to do is you got to learn to standardize the non-essentials. In other words, if you're creating a personalized service, the most important thing for you is to be in front of your client. The most important thing is for you to, when you show up, that you're giving you all of your time in solving their problem, you see. And that's what most of us are really good at, is figuring out what time if the other guy is there, they're there 7 minutes, they're in and out, that we build that relationship. A lot of people have a great relationship with their clients because they've been in that home every single month or every other month for the last 10 years. And they know when the kids' birthdays are. They know when the anniversaries are. They know personal things about that family. And you should be using that personal information to market to them. You should be, that Christmas card, more than that Christmas card, it's the birthday card. It's the, hey, I know your kid is graduating. Congratulations. Using the marketing information to market to the client in a way that nobody else is going to do. Okay, it's personal. So the question then becomes, is billing personal? Do you need a staff of somebody folding invoices sending it in the mail and doing it? Or can you somehow automate that process so that it allows you more time to be in front of more clients? That's the whole purpose of automating things and doing things like this. And then also, does it serve the client to do it this way? What's their preference? I have clients that say, no, do not send me an email. I don't read emails. The reality is only 24% of our clients opens their email. 24%. When I do our studies on what is the open rate of our emails, it averages 24%. 75% of clients that we email something to will not open it. They're too busy. Our clients are executives. They're busy people running businesses. They don't have time for, the constant email on marketing, and they'll unsubscribe if you email them too often. So for us, about once a month is more than enough for our clients to handle before they unsubscribe to our email service. So again, is the billing system that you have, can you use it as a marketing tool of how you bill to the client for ease? And the average client for us here is they're making anywhere between gross household income probably around $200,000 a year. Okay, that's the gross household income. That's in the neighborhood of our clients. We're trying to now go into that $100,000, between that $70,000 and $100,000 a year client. We're developing new services for them because we know that there's a huge market there. And in order for us to grow, we can only sell to so many of the 1%ers. So we got to go into the 10% of the marketplace. And what is it that they want? What do they prefer? How do they prefer to be billed? Those are things that we do market analysis on to figure it out. And it's not that hard, but you have to do it. So now you're trying to sell something that is highly competitive in your market, but you have to do it, because the GHP leads to the lawn, the GHP leads to the termite work, the GHP leads to that exclusion work. The GHP is like your way in. To most companies, it's probably a loss leader. It could be that some people use that as a market strategy. Is they give away the GHP, they give it at a great discount in order to get the other business, because it's not that hard to do for the most part once you get a house cleaned out and control it for the most part. There's there's always that trouble property that's a pain in your neck. So now you're billing every month, you're stopping there. Can you stop by? I used to have people, can you stop by tomorrow and pick up a check? No, I'm not going to stop by tomorrow to pick up a $65 check. It's going to cost me $65 to drive back here again. Mail it to me. I got some people that insist that I stop by and pick up their check. And I said, no, we're not going to do it. Plain and simple. I'll mail you a bill. I'll email it to you. You send us a check or pay us online. It is much less expensive to get paid that way than, writing out bills and leaving them on the door and then following up and all that. Now we have a big, huge market and an opportunity to do prepaid. And there is a big market. I've had plenty of people ask me, can I just pay you the year in advance? And I was hesitant before. I got to be honest with you. I was hesitant to take on somebody's money without providing the service, just based on my principles. But then I realized the customer is the one wanting this service. I am doing a disservice to the client by telling them no when it's something that can easily be done. Think about it that way. If a customer wants something and you're not giving it to them, you're not serving the client in the way the client wants to be served. We are in the service business. And we are not in the pest control business. We are in the service business. We're providing a vital service to the client that the client wants or needs. Client wakes up 6 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock. He goes to work because he's the lawyer, he's the doctor. Mom stays home with the kids. She gets them all ready, buses them off to school, and then she's off to her Zumba class, or she's off to her yoga class, or she's off to her massage. She's got a bunch of things to get done. She's never home. Who's home? The cleaning lady, and in the afternoon, the nanny's home. That's 90% of my clients. They don't have time to deal with problems. They don't want to be bothered. They want you to handle everything for them, tell them what it costs, and they'll send you a check. That's the majority. That's about 85% of my client. The other 15% are the two family is working. They're making about $100,000 a year, 150. Both of them working. Both of them have careers. They have even less time. It's take the kids to school, get to the office by 9. I'm home by 6:30, 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. Most of the time I go there at night, husband isn't even home yet at 8 o'clock at night. We service our clients in the way they want to be serviced. We perform a higher personalized service than many of my competition. They don't want to be there at night. We're there at 8 o'clock. We'll serve you up to 8 o'clock at night. We will do overnight a food service because that's what the market is demanding. We're a 24-hour town. We're not a little town with 1,500 people or 10,000 people. This is a 24-hour town. People work all kinds of crazy hours. I got clients who are police officers. They are nurses. They're working the late night shift and they get home at 6 in the morning. It's all over the place. It's crazy. Then you have that client, which is the working class, middle class, probably making $50,000 to $75,000 a year. They're just barely enough to own their home. They live in an apartment, but they leave in the morning. They come back at night by 6:30. Nobody's ever home. You're not going to get in there no matter what you try. You have to service them when they're home. They can't take off from work because they can't tell their boss, I'm going to take off because I got a pest control service this morning at 9 o'clock. It's not going to happen. So you can forget about it. Nobody's going to leave you the key under the door. How you bill based on a market is going to depend on where that customer is. Now, here's the deal with prepay. Again, some people, because of the way they think everybody thinks like them, says, I will never do prepaid because I don't like to prepay for anything. Therefore, everybody else must not like to prepay for things. That's not going to market. That's based on personal preference. And you can't run a company, and especially a growing company, on your personal preference. I prepay for my hosting service a year. $195 a year. I get a huge discount for prepaying my hosting. I'm going to have that website up 365. I know it's going to be there. I've been doing business with that company for several years. It's fine. I prepay my insurance because you save a ton by not having to finance it. We prepay a host of other services. Why not prepaid pest control? Why not? It all comes down to trust. Does the customer trust you? If the customer trusts you and you've been in business several years and you're not planning to go out of business, there should be no reason why, if the customer wants it, that you shouldn't be able to. It could be part of your USP. I know several companies that only take on a client if it's on a credit card, auto bill every single month. There is no billing. Your invoice is sent to you. It's already paid. That's how I pay 90% of my bills. I'm too busy. That's how I pay my insurance. I pay everything on recurring billing that I need to manage. I know what day it's due. I get the email. I know it was paid. I know the money's in the bank. 90% of what I do is prepay. Paid monthly. But I do prepay quite a bunch of things. The question is, do you have the discipline, the ability to manage these types of services? I want to give a special shout out to Josh Alpert, Mr. Coast to Coast. Thank you for liking the podcast on Facebook. I really, really do appreciate it. And David Ward, listening to us from Ireland. He works for Rent-A-Kill Pest Control in Ireland. He listens to us over there. Thank you for listening to us. Greatly, greatly do appreciate it. And J Best Pest Control at JBest05 on Twitter is following us on Twitter. Hey, thank you guys for really following us, and for I got a lot of people sharing the podcast all over the place. Thank you so much. It means a lot. If you find yourself on any one of those platforms that you're listening to us, will you please be so kind as to leave us a 5-star review on all of them. No, okay, just one 5-star review will be fine. And just let us know what you think and comment on the podcast. I greatly appreciate it. And it doesn't, it can be negative. If you don't like something about the podcast, it doesn't always have to be positive. I can learn a lot more from bad experience than I can from all the good experience. So it's okay. I'm a big boy. You're not going to hurt my feelings, and I do appreciate it. I want to give you a real world example. This is going to be your tech tip for the week. I want to give you a real world example of giving away your best in content. Check out on YouTube Sales 3.0. And it's a bunch of conferences that they recorded, and they give away the conferences for free on YouTube to gain membership and to get a better audience. And they get an increased number of people wanting to go to the conferences. Here's what you got to understand. If somebody uses your material and benefits from it, they will share it and tell other people about it. If they're able and afford and they want to be a person that's not a hermit and they want to go to a conference, they're going to go to that conference. And the more people that are exposed to your product and go to those conferences, the better you do. This is why, NPMA and all the other associations don't get it. They don't understand the old guard of people telling me you got to go to somewhere to get training is BS. There is a time when you do need to sit in a classroom and hands-on. But for a lecture, really? I really need to attend a conference to hear a lecture on Zika because I am not smart enough to listen to it on my own time and be able to understand it. That's what they're saying. You need to get over yourselves. You will get a lot more loyal followers, increased membership, and better attendance of conferences if you put them online for free. Give it away. Give away your best content. I've done my best content while other people are holding on to content, and I give away my best content. Because, that's the way to do it. This is the new media world, and a lot of people who are stuck on old ways of doing things insist on doing it the old way. What do you think about it? Give me a call, leave me a message, and let me know. 707-395-7378. You don't have to leave your name. You don't have to leave the name of the company you work for. You can just say, here's what I think, and you know what? That's fine, and I'll use it on the air, and other people can benefit from what you think. Join the society, pestgeekpodcast.com. Follow us there. Follow us on Twitter. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook. We are everywhere you want to be. We're like Visa. And so, go ahead and join us. In the mergers and acquisition, Rent-A-Kill is still buying up companies. They bought All Good Pest Control out of Atlanta. Company does about $27 million in revenue. They were 29 on the PCT 100 last year. And Rent-A-Kill has acquired in the United States last year 17 businesses. And by the way, they're a European company. They're a UK company. They're not American, but they're buying up everything. And Univar stock offered 15 million shares of Univar stock at a price of $29 per share on the New York Stock Exchange. By the way, they're a publicly traded company, if you didn't know that. So I thought that was pretty neat news that's going on in the industry. So let's talk about the pros and cons of prepaid pest control. What are the pros and cons? Well, the con for a lot of people is they're terrible money managers. And they're good money managers in their home and things. But when it comes to managing a lot of the business finances, they don't want to have to deal with additional things. They like that monthly cash flow. They like that predictability of how much is coming in every single month and see it trickle up, a little bit at a time. But to manage, a prepaid service and see that money come in once and then not see it again, and all of a sudden one month is great and the other month is not so great, that up and down, they can't manage that. We sold 3 prepaid services this month, and then next month we don't sell any, and then, the money's up and down, and we're kind of like can't manage that because you don't have an accountant working for you at your office. You don't have a chief financial officer that looks after this stuff, that says, hey, this is how we can increase cash flow. This is how we can increase our money for additional advertising. You don't have that benefit. If you had a staff of people doing that work, that they would focus on that and says, I need a cash flow projection for the next 30 days, they could give it to you. You are the cash flow projection for the next 30 days based on what you do. So for a lot of people, that's a negative, that they want that little, bit of money coming in, trickling in all of the time. The other big complaint that people are going to have about prepaid services from the business part is that, yeah, they get that payment at the beginning of the year. They may get that $500 prepaid, but then after going there and not seeing a pay because they get paid on the spot, then they feel like they're working for free after a couple of months and they're not getting paid, and they're kind of like, well, that's the wrong motivation. That's all up in your head. It has nothing to do with reality. What I'm looking for is growth in the business, cash flow more than profit, because I can break even, but as long as I have positive cash flow, I can survive forever without zero profit. I can operate on zero profit as long as I got enough to cover salaries, my salaries of my employees, the cost and all this, and I can survive. But cash flow, you can't do without cash flow. And so they have this mind that, no, I get demotivated if I don't see the money. What I look at the end of the month is, how much money did we make this month? I never focus on the weekly or daily. I say, by the end of the month, I want to be here. And I want to see this go every single month up. Regardless, I don't care where it comes from or how it gets here. I want it in the bank, and I want it, to be increasing. So how do you deal with that trickling of cash flow? Well, what you do is you create two accounts. And you deposit all of your regular deposits into that account, but you take all of the prepaids and you put them what is known as an escrow account. And every month you withdraw from that account. See, that solves that problem. And so of you seeing the money, now you know how much you have in prepaids in the bank, and you can manage, you can have fiscal responsibility for the money that your client paid you, and then you just transfer it over to a new account. You got to do some accounting, and you should talk to an accountant about, these issues, but that's the way that you would do it. What you do is you reduce costs greatly by getting a prepaid. I mean, think about it. Every time you have to create an invoice, you got to get stamps. You got to use the paper. You got to use an envelope. You got to go to the post office and mail it, or you have to leave it on the door. There's a cost in processing the check. There's a cost of you getting into your computer and receiving the check. There's a cost to going to the bank with the check. It all depends on your growth strategy. If you're doing this for one route, it's not a big deal. But wait until you get to 3-4 routes and you're doing this, and you need an administrator now to do this. And the secretary is doing billing and receiving when it makes no money. This is a non-revenue producing activity. Understand that every time you spend a minute doing something like this, you're not making money. It doesn't make money. It's hiring a person to handle billing, to me, is about the biggest non-essential expense that I can ever spend on. I don't want to hire somebody to do accounts receivable. I want to hire somebody to do sales, telemarketing, content marketing, something that produces revenue that we can measure to produce revenue. When I added it up, the cost of us doing a bill, it's about $5 per transaction, per client, per bill, by the time you factor everything in. So why not do a prepaid service and pass that savings along to the customer? I know a lot of you have problems with the word discount. It's highly offensive to you. It's not in your vocabulary. You don't comprende when I say discount. Yeah, no entiendo. Descuento? No entiendo. But if you're saving $5 a bill and you have to bill that client 6 times a year, that's $30. Why not tell the client, so listen, this is the cost of us doing this. And for you, it's much better since you're so busy. I'll save you the $30 and I'll give it back to you. One transaction. It's done. So there is a benefit of going to market. One of the drawbacks is sometimes customers may feel, since they paid a year in advance, that they're entitled to more services than they really are. In other words, you got to stipulate, hey, it's an every other month service, it's an every month service, but it isn't that every time you feel that you saw one ant, you're entitled to a reservice for free, because that doesn't happen. Most of the time, my customers are not like that, but people may feel. So you're going to end up with one or two of those, and just like you end up with one or two of those now when you're doing the bi-monthly. And you say, I'm there once a month, I'm there twice a month, there is no free reservice, we don't do free reservice, whatever. But understand that there are your pros and cons. Having a card on file. You better have insurance if you've got credit card numbers on file to cover that. Most people have no clue that they're liable for storing those credit cards. You have one of those forms in a file cabinet. You have to carry additional insurance in case those numbers get stolen and you're not liable. There is a cost of storing those numbers. Most people have no clue that you need a form authorizing the use of keeping a credit card on file. Every time you swipe that card, that you don't swipe that card, that you have it on auto bill, you're incurring twice the fee of a swipe. There is a huge liability involved in keying in numbers, and that is passed along to you. So you're paying somewhere between a 2.85 to 3% plus the transaction fee. So every time you swipe that card on file, you're incurring huge charges. By doing one charge one time, you eliminate all those recurring fees that every time, the transaction fees every time you have to run that card. Here's a big one, and we're going to spend some time discussing this one. The fear of non-renewals, that the customer is not going to renew with you next year to pay another year because somebody came knocking at their door and they decided to go with them. Listen, your customers are with you for a reason. And most of your customers are going to be there even if you increase their prices, because they trust you. You're part of the family. What you got to get over is this fear of rejection, this fear that you going to have to do sales work. Sales is an integral part of what we do. It's not a bad word. And we have to be salespeople all the time. We have to convince people to do something they might not want to do because it is in their best interest. I always look at things that are in the best interest of the client. I turn down businesses for lawn and ornamental that says, listen, we're not going to satisfy this client with the landscape company they have when they're scalping their lawn and the way they're trimming, and this client is always going to be upset. It's not in the best interest of the client to offer this service. The client has a certain landscape that is a problem. Say, listen, reality is you can't go with that program that you have. You've gone through 3 companies. They're not going to satisfy you. Nobody can satisfy you. 1, because of the design of your landscape. Number 2, plant selection. And number 3, you have an unrealistic expectation of what that plant should look like. So all the time we're figuring out in the sales process, the time to figure out what the problems are going to be is in the sales process. The problem is people are not salespeople and they don't think in sales process mode. I think in sales process mode because I've been a salesman all my life. I've been a professional salesman and I've been trained to be a salesman. So I'm thinking of, if I need to have disclosure and transparency, it's in the sales process, not afterwards. The time to discuss that the client will not be home and he expects you to be home. I mean, he expects you to service the house when they're there and only when they're there. The time to find that out is in the sales process by having a presentation that says, this is how we perform our ongoing preventive services. I want you here on Tuesday between 9 and 10 because that's the day I'm off. And then from 10 o'clock, I go to the gym and then I go do this, and I'm not going to wait for you. You have to be here at 10 o'clock. And you signed a 1-year deal, and this client is expecting this. This is not the time to discover that. You got to do all your discovery on the front end by having a professional sales process saying, listen, I got 2 options for you on billing. We can either do in every month this price automatically on your credit card, or you will save us all those transaction fees and we'll pass the savings on to you, and I will give you an annual prepay if you want to do that. Which one of these 2 services will you prefer? And give the client the option of choosing between one and the other. Don't say the client will not accept this because I do not accept this. Stop thinking like everybody else is like you. They're not. So the fear of renewal, if the customer is renewed this year, chances are they will renew next year because that's their MO. You got to understand customers operate in a certain way. People think in a certain way. They behave in a certain way. And that's what they do. You always find out how many companies have they had. I always ask people, how many companies have you had here in the last 5 years? If they tell me 1, and then they'll tell me the reasons why they no longer want to do business with them, that's discovery. In sales, what you find out about that client is more important than you pitching your service. Discovery, because I do so much, and I did so much of strategic sales, that I was always needing it to be in discovery mode. And I bring that over, and you can benefit from that. So what I'm saying is, don't discard certain things because you wouldn't do them, but find out what your customer wants. Build a USP. Build a unique selling proposition other than our bifenthrin is better than their bifenthrin. Our B&G is better than their B&G. We spray better. What is it that makes you unique over even, listen, you're in town with not large companies, but you're competing with other independents too, who have the same mind that we're better than you are. We're better than everybody. And in their mind, they're better. And why are they better? You're competing against, your same class of peers. And you have to have something that sets you apart. I think if you can get a professional sales presentation with 2 billing options, get everything automated, you will do a whole lot better. But again, it has to depend on where you're at. If you're in a town that people, there's only 1 fax machine in the town, it's at the doctor's office, there is no internet, chances are you're getting paid in cash anyway, or you're getting paid in chickens. But for the most part, if you're in a major market, this is normal. And so keep your mind open, stay open. I want to also talk about one of the people that we interviewed at Expo. And that was a rep from Lipotech. And we're going to go ahead so you can listen to that in a moment. Hold on a second. All right, I'm at Expo here, and I am at the Lipotech booth. And I'm going to be talking to Matthew Titshaw. Yes, you heard that right. It's Titshaw, and we're going to be talking about all their products that they have here at the show. Hey, Matt, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah, so tell me about Lipotech. Tell me about the company. What is the company about? How long has it been in business? What do you guys do?
Okay, we do rodenticides and stations.
All right,
is our main thing. Soft bait is what we excel in. So soft bait technology is what we're known for. First Strike, Resolve, Takedown's our new product.
Okay.
Those are rodenticides. They are the best on the market. Okay. Palatability over a block, fantastic. So when you have a rodent issue, go for the soft bait.
So explain the difference between a soft bait and a block bait, and what's the fundamental difference and why we should use it?
Okay. The difference between a soft bait and block is wax. Okay. A block has wax in it, about 30% wax. Our soft bait has no wax. So it's basically made of food grade oils and grains and active ingredient. So when you put it on a rod with a block, has wax in it, especially down here in this Florida heat, okay, you could have melting.
Okay.
All right, our soft bait will stay on the rod. It won't melt. Holds up great to moisture, so you don't have the mold issue you would with a block.
And what about in the cold, the extreme cold?
Extreme cold is great as well. It stays soft. Yep. Sometimes it gets a little hard when it gets cold, but it's easy to put on a rod. Still palatable to a rodent. With it being, basically the food grade oils and grains, the palatability issue is non-existent because they will go for it over a secondary food source. They'll go to the First Strike or Resolve or Takedown over a secondary food source.
All right, so explain the difference between First Strike, Takedown, and Resolve. And obviously there are different active ingredients and different baits. And what would be application-wise also? So let's start with the different First Strike, Takedown, and Resolve. Explain the difference.
First Strike is diphethalone, is the active ingredient in it. It's basically what we market it as a clean-out bait as well as a maintenance bait. So it is a good all-over bait.
Okay.
Takedown is our new product. It's basically, we designate it for clean-out only. It's bromethylene, so there's no antidote for it.
Okay.
K1, for anticoagulant is K1 as antidote. Bromethylene doesn't have an antidote, okay? So it's basically strictly a clean out, 1 week only.
Okay, now is that an anticoagulant or is that a neurotoxin?
No, it is a neurotoxin.
It is a neurotoxin.
That is
okay.
correct.
All right.
All right, and Resolve is bromadiolone.
Okay.
It's the active ingredient, and it's basically a maintenance bait.
Okay.
Wouldn't recommend it for clean out, but just a maintenance.
Okay, gotcha. And so what else you got here? You got rodent stations.
We got our Aegis RP anchors.
Okay.
They come in black and gray. Fantastic product there. Easy to open, easy to check, faster for the techs to basically inspect them.
Gotcha. All right, man. Well, I appreciate the interview. I appreciate what you're doing. I thank you so much. And look forward to you listening to the podcast next week.
Absolutely.
I think I just got a brand new listener here.
Absolutely.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you.
Well, that was it. And this is it for the podcast. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. And until next time, you have a great one.
Thank you for listening to the Pest Geek Podcast. If you have enjoyed the Pest Geek Podcast, please give us a rating, write a review, or subscribe to the channel. You can join the Pest Geek Society by visiting PestGeekPodcast.com. Thank you for listening. See you next time.